The alien ship was bigger than any city on Earth. It hung in space above the planet like a dark moon, casting shadows across entire continents. Inside the ship, High Commander Thexvar stood before a massive viewing screen. His gray skin gleamed under the harsh lights of the command deck. His forearms moved in quick gestures as he spoke to his officers. "These humans are weak," Thexvar said. His voice was deep and rough like grinding metal. "Their weapons are primitive. Their defenses are laughable. We will crush them in days." The other aliens nodded. They had conquered dozens of worlds before. Earth. Every species they met either surrendered quickly or fought and died. Humans would be no different. Thexvar activated the communication system. His image appeared on every screen across Earth. Television broadcasts stopped. Radio stations went silent. Everyone on the planet could see the alien commander. "People of Earth," Thexvar began. "I am High Commander Thexvar of the Galactic Hegemony. Your world now belongs to us. You have one solar cycle to surrender completely. Send your military leaders to our ship. They will bow before us and give us control of your planet. If you refuse, we will destroy every city, every building, every life on your world. This is not a request. This is fact." The transmission ended. The alien ship went silent, waiting. On Earth, panic spread like wildfire. People ran through the streets. Governments held emergency meetings. Military leaders gathered in secret rooms, planning desperate strategies. Nuclear weapons were prepared for launch. Everyone expected the worst. But in a small village in South Korea, an old man named Kim Bong-soo was not panicking. He was sitting in his rice field, watching the water move slowly between the green plants. He had been farming this land for 50 years. His hands were rough and dirty from decades of working in the soil. His back was bent from years of planting and harvesting. Bong-soo's phone rang. It was an unusual phone call. The caller was from the United Nations Emergency Council. "Mr. Kim," the voice said, "we need you to come to New York immediately." "I am busy," Bong-soo replied. "It is harvest season. My rice needs attention." "Sir, this is about the alien threat. The world needs you." Bong-soo looked at his rice plants. "The aliens can wait. Rice cannot." 3 hours later, a helicopter landed in Bong-soo's field. Government officials in expensive suits climbed out. They walked carefully through the mud, trying not to dirty their shoes. "Mr. Kim," said the lead official, "the Earth's leaders have voted. We want you to negotiate with the aliens." Bong-soo laughed. "Me? I am just a farmer. I know nothing about aliens or wars." "That is exactly why we chose you," the official said. "Every military solution we have considered ends in disaster. We need someone who thinks differently. But I have no training in diplomacy. You have something better. You understand life. You know how to make things grow. Maybe you can help us grow peace instead of war." Bong-soo looked at his rice one more time. Then he nodded slowly. "I will need my helper, Lee Hana. She speaks many languages and knows about plants like I do." Lee Hana was 28 years old and worked at the local agricultural research station. She had studied at universities in Korea and America. She understood both old farming ways and new science. When Bong-soo called her, she came immediately. "Are you sure about this?" Hana asked as they sat in the government helicopter flying toward the spaceport. "No," Bong-soo said honestly. "But being sure is not always important. Sometimes you must plant seeds even when you do not know if they will grow." At the spaceport, they boarded a small shuttle. Bong-soo carried only his old messenger bag. Inside were some tools, a few packets of seeds, and his lunch. Hana brought her tablet computer and some research files. The shuttle docked with the alien ship. The airlock opened with a loud hiss. Alien guards waited on the other side. They were tall and thin with gray skin and large black eyes. They wore armor that looked like it was made from metal and bone. "Follow," one guard said in broken English. They walked through long corridors. The walls were dark and smooth. Strange symbols glowed with blue light. The air smelled like ozone and something else Bong-soo could not identify. Finally, they reached a huge room. High Commander Thexvar sat on a throne-like chair in the center. Dozens of alien officers stood around him, their eyes all focused on the two humans. Thexvar looked at Bong-Su for a long moment. "You are the military leader of Earth?" "No," Bong-Su said simply. "Then you are the political leader?" "No." "The scientific leader?" "No." Thexvar's forearms moved in anger. "Then what are you?" "I am a farmer." The room fell silent. The aliens looked at each other in confusion. Several of them made clicking sounds that might have been laughter. "A farmer?" Thexvar repeated. "Your species sends a farmer to negotiate surrender?" "I did not come to surrender," Bong-Su said calmly. "I came to talk." "About what? Your inevitable defeat?" Bong-Su reached into his bag and pulled out a small packet of rice seeds. "About these." The aliens stared at the tiny seeds in Bong-Su's palm. They had never seen anything like them. "What are those?" Thexvar asked. "Seeds," Bong-Su said. "Each one can become a plant. Each plant can feed a family. From one small seed comes enough food for many people." "Food comes from factories," said one alien officer. "From machines and processing centers." "For you, maybe," Bong-Su said. "For us, food comes from the earth. We plant these seeds in soil. We give them water and sunlight. They grow into plants. The plants give us rice. We have been doing this for thousands of years." The aliens looked confused. Their species had forgotten how to grow food long ago. They had conquered other worlds to steal resources and slaves. They had never thought about creating food from nothing but dirt and water. "Why are you showing us this?" Thexvar demanded. "Because," Bong-Su said, settling into a comfortable position, "before we talk about war, I want to understand something. What do you eat?" And so began the strangest negotiation in the history of the galaxy. Instead of discussing weapons or surrender terms, an old farmer from Korea started asking aliens about their lunch. High Commander Thexvar stared at the old human farmer. The question about food had confused him. In all his years of conquest, no enemy had ever asked what his troops ate for dinner. "We consume nutrition cubes," Thexvar said slowly. "They are manufactured in processing facilities. They contain all required nutrients for survival." Bong-Su nodded, as if this was the most interesting thing he had ever heard. "May I see one of these cubes?" An alien officer brought a small gray cube to Bong-Su. It looked like a block of concrete and smelled like chemicals. Bong-Su examined it carefully, turning it over in his weathered hands. "How does it taste?" he asked. The aliens looked at each other. "Taste?" Thexvar repeated. "Yes. Is it sweet? Salty? Does it make you happy when you eat it?" "It provides nutrition," the commander said. "Enjoyment is not relevant." Lee Hanna watched this exchange with growing understanding. She had studied alien cultures and knew that many advanced species had lost touch with basic pleasures like food. But she had never met any who seemed so completely disconnected from the idea of enjoying a meal. "Commander," Hanna said politely, "may we ask how long your people have been eating these cubes?" An alien scientist stepped forward. His name was Vextar, and he was in charge of the fleet's nutrition systems. "For approximately 800 Earth years," he said. "Before that, our ancestors consumed the flesh of conquered animals. But that became inefficient as we expanded across the galaxy." "What about plants?" Bong-Su asked. "Did your people ever eat plants?" "Plants?" Vextar looked confused. "Why would anyone consume plants? They provide no significant protein." Bong-Su smiled. "Young man, plants provide many things. Let me show you." He reached into his bag again and pulled out his lunch. It was simple: rice balls wrapped in seaweed, some pickled vegetables, and a piece of dried fish. He unwrapped it carefully and held it out. "This is my lunch," he said. "The rice comes from seeds like the ones I showed you. The seaweed grows in the ocean. The vegetables grew in my garden. Would you like to try some?" The aliens backed away as if Bong-Su was offering them poison. "We cannot consume unprocessed organic matter," Vextar said quickly. "It could contain harmful bacteria." "I have been eating food like this for 70 years, Bong-Su said. It has not killed me yet. He took a bite of his rice ball and chewed, thoughtfully. The aliens watched in fascination and horror. They had never seen anyone eat something that had not been sterilized and processed. "Commander," Hana said, "may I ask about your food supply situation? Do you have enough nutrition cubes for your entire fleet?" Thexavar's expression darkened. This was clearly a sensitive topic. "Our supplies are adequate," he said stiffly. "But..." Vextar looked worried. "Commander, perhaps we should explain our situation to these humans. They may have information that could help us." "Help you with what?" Bongsu asked gently. There was a long silence. Finally, Vextar spoke. "Our food production facilities are failing. The machines that make nutrition cubes require rare minerals. These minerals are becoming harder to find. We have been forced to expand our territory to locate new sources." "How many worlds have you conquered to find these minerals?" Hana asked. 47 worlds in the last 50 years, Thexvar admitted. "But the mineral deposits are smaller each time, and the conquered populations require nutrition cubes too, which strains our supply even more." Bongsu nodded slowly. "So you conquer worlds to feed your people, but each conquest creates more people to feed. It is like trying to fill a bucket with a hole in the bottom." "That is an accurate assessment," Vexitar said quietly. "What will happen when you cannot find more minerals?" Hana asked. The aliens looked uncomfortable. "We will adapt," Thexavar said, but his voice lacked conviction. Bongsu stood up slowly. His old joints creaked. "May I see your food production facility?" "Why?" Thexavar demanded. "I am curious. I have been growing food my whole life. I would like to understand how you make yours." The aliens debated among themselves in their clicking language. Finally, Thexavar nodded. "Very well. But you will see that our methods are far superior to your primitive farming." They walked through more corridors to reach the production facility. It was a massive room filled with humming machinery. Conveyor belts carried gray cubes from one machine to another. The air was thick with chemical smells and the sound of grinding gears. Bongsu walked slowly through the facility, examining everything. He watched workers in protective suits monitoring the machines. He observed the raw materials being processed: synthetic proteins, artificial vitamins, binding agents, and preservatives. "How many cubes does this facility produce per day?" he asked. 50,000, Vextar said proudly. "It operates continuously without rest." "And how many people does your ship carry?" "Approximately 30,000. Bongsu did some quick math in his head. "So you make more cubes than you need?" "Yes. The excess is stored for emergency situations or sent to newly conquered worlds." "What happens if the machine breaks?" "We have backup machines. What if they all break?" Vextar hesitated. "That has never happened." "But it could happen?" "Theoretically, yes." Bongsu nodded and continued his examination. He noticed that the facility had no windows. The aliens who worked there never saw sunlight. They breathed recycled air and ate the same gray cubes they produced. "These machines," Bongsu said finally, "they are very impressive, but they are also very complicated." "Complexity is necessary for efficiency," Thexvar said. "Maybe," Bongsu replied, "but simple things are harder to break." He reached into his bag once more and pulled out a small packet of vegetable seeds. "These are carrot seeds. If I plant one seed in good soil and give it water and sunlight, it will grow into a carrot. I can eat the carrot. If I am careful, I can save some seeds from that carrot to plant next year. One seed becomes many seeds." "But that takes time," Vextar objected. "Our machines produce food immediately." "Yes," Bongsu agreed. "But your machines require rare minerals that you must steal from other worlds. My seeds only need soil, water, and sunlight. These things are free." Lee Hana watched. The alien scientists processed this information. She could see them starting to understand something they had never considered before. The humans were not just offering a different way to make food. They were offering a way to make food that did not require conquest and war. "Commander," one of the alien scientists said quietly, Perhaps we should learn more about this farming that the humans practice. Thexavar looked angry. We did not come here to learn about primitive food production. We came to conquer this world. But sir, the scientist continued, if their methods could solve our supply problems— Silence, Thexavar roared. We are warriors, not farmers. Bongsu looked at the commander with sad, understanding eyes. Young man, he said softly, there is no shame in feeding your people. That is what warriors should do. Protect and provide for those they lead. The old farmers. Words hung in the air like seeds waiting to sprout in fertile ground. 3 days had passed since Bongsu first stepped onto the alien ship. During those days, word had spread throughout the fleet about the strange human farmer and his seeds. Groups of alien scientists had begun gathering in the corridors, talking, in hushed voices about something called farming. Bongsu sat in a small room they had given him. He was not a prisoner, but he was not exactly free either. Lihana sat across from him, working on her tablet computer. She had been translating farming terms into the alien language and preparing presentations. The scientists want to meet with you again, Hana told him. They have many questions. Good, Bongsu said. Questions are like seeds. They can grow into understanding. A knock came at the door. Vextar entered with 3 other alien scientists. They looked nervous and excited at the same time. Farmer Kim, Vextar said, we have been thinking about what you told us, about plants growing from seeds. We would like to understand better. Of course, Bongsu said. What would you like to know? Everything, said one of the scientists. Her name was Lixara, and she was in charge of resource management for the fleet. Start from the beginning, Bongsu smiled. Very well. But first, let me ask you something. Do any of your worlds have soil? The aliens looked confused. Soil? Vextar asked. Dirt, earth, the brown stuff that covers the ground on planets. Oh yes, most worlds have surface material, but it is usually contaminated or unsuitable for construction. Show me, Bongsu said. Lixara activated a holographic display. Images of different worlds appeared in the air. Bongsu saw barren landscapes, rocky deserts, and polluted wastelands. These were worlds the aliens had conquered and strip-mined for resources. This world here, Bongsu said, pointing to one image. What did it look like before you arrived? Before? Lixara seemed puzzled by the question. Why does that matter? May I see the historical records? The aliens exchanged glances. They rarely thought about what planets looked like before conquest. But they found some old survey data. The image changed, showing the same world as it had been 50 years earlier. Bongsu gasped. The planet had been covered in green forests and blue oceans. Rivers had flowed through valleys filled with plant life. It had been beautiful. What happened to all the green? He asked quietly. It was cleared for mining operations, Lixara said matter-of-factly. Plant life interferes with mineral extraction. But plants are not interference, Bongsu said. Plants are the foundation of life itself. He stood up and moved to the holographic display. With Hana's help, he began to explain how ecosystems worked. He showed them how plants cleaned the air and water. He explained how different plants could grow in different types of soil and climate. Plants do more than just provide food, he said. They provide everything. Wood for building, fibers for clothing, medicine for healing, oxygen for breathing. The alien scientists listened in amazement. They had never heard of these concepts before. Their civilization had evolved beyond the need for natural ecosystems, or so they thought. But how do you control plants? Asked another scientist named Kothmar. How do you make them grow where you want them? You do not control plants, Bongsu said with a laugh. You cooperate with them. You give them what they need and they give you what you need. That sounds inefficient, Kothmar objected. Our machines do exactly what we command them to do. Yes, Bongsu agreed. But what happens when your machines break down? What happens when you run out of parts to fix them? We build new machines. With what materials? We mine them from conquered worlds. And when those materials run out? Kothmar fell silent. The logical conclusion was clear, but it was too disturbing to say out loud. Bong-Su reached into his bag and pulled out several different types of seeds. These are tomato seeds. These are bean seeds. These are wheat seeds. Each type of plant is different, but they all work together. He began to explain crop rotation, soil nutrition, and companion planting. The alien scientists took notes furiously. They had never heard of agricultural techniques that could actually improve soil quality over time instead of depleting it. You mean the same piece of land can be used forever? Lixara asked in disbelief. Forever and longer, Bong-Su confirmed. My family has been farming the same land for 8 generations. Each generation, the soil becomes richer and more productive. But that is impossible, Kothmar protested. Resource extraction always depletes the source. Only if you take without giving back, Bong-Su said. But farmers give back. We return nutrients to the soil. We plant different crops that help each other grow. We work with nature instead of against it. Lihana activated her tablet and showed them videos from Earth. The aliens watched in stunned silence as vast fields of grain swayed in the wind. They saw farmers working with their hands in the soil. They saw animals grazing peacefully in green pastures. Your world, Vextar whispered. It is covered in food? Much of it, yes, Hana replied. And the more we farm responsibly, the more fertile our land becomes. How many people can your planet feed? Currently, about 8 billion. But with better techniques and more land brought into cultivation, we could probably feed 20 billion or more. The aliens stared at her in shock. Their entire galactic hegemony contained only about 12 billion individuals, and they were constantly struggling to feed them all. 20 billion, Lixar repeated faintly. Maybe more, Bong-Su said casually. We have not tried our hardest, yet. At that moment, High Commander Thexvar entered the room. He looked angry and frustrated. What is happening here? He demanded. My scientists have been neglecting their duties to attend these farming lessons. Commander, Vextar said, carefully, the humans may have a solution to our supply crisis. We do not have a crisis, Thexvar snapped. We have a mission. We will conquer this world and take their resources. But sir, Lixara said, what if we could solve our food problems without conquest? What if we could feed our people without destroying other worlds? Impossible. Bong-Su stood up slowly. Commander, may I make a proposal? Speak quickly. Give me one small room on your ship. Give me some soil from one of your conquered worlds. Give me 30 days. I will grow enough food to feed 50 of your people. Thexvar laughed harshly. You think you can produce 50 nutrition cubes worth of sustenance in one room? I think I can produce something better than nutrition cubes, Bong-Su said calmly. If you fail, then you can conquer Earth as planned. But if I succeed, you must listen to what else we can teach you. The commander considered this. From his perspective, it was a win-win situation. If the human failed, it would prove that their farming methods were worthless. If the human succeeded, maybe there was something useful to learn. Very well, Thexvar said. But when you fail, this foolishness ends. Agreed, Bong-Su said with a slight bow. As the aliens left to prepare a growing space, Hana looked worried. Bong-Su, can you really grow enough food for 50 aliens in 30 days? The old farmer smiled and patted his bag of seeds. Hana, I have been surprising people with what can grow from small beginnings my entire life. Now we will see if aliens can be surprised too. The room they gave Bong-Su was small and had metal walls. It had been used for storage before. The aliens brought soil from a planet they had conquered 2 years earlier. The soil was gray and lifeless, full of chemical residue from mining operations. Bong-Su looked at the dead earth and sighed. This will be more difficult than I thought, he told Hana. Can you make it work? She asked. Everything can work, Bong-Su replied. But first, this soil needs to remember how to live again. He began the slow process of soil rehabilitation. He mixed in organic matter from his food scraps. He added beneficial bacteria cultures that Hana had requested from Earth. He worked the soil with his hands, breaking up the hard clumps and mixing in nutrients. The alien scientists watched through the glass wall of the growing room. They took notes on everything Bongsu did. Many of them had never seen anyone work with their hands in dirt before. "Why does he touch the soil directly?" asked Vextar. "Is that not unsanitary?" "Soil is not dirty," Hana explained. "Good soil is full of life. Billions of microorganisms work together to create the conditions that plants need." "You mean the soil is alive?" "Very much alive. Farmer Kim can feel the condition of the soil through his hands. He knows if it needs more moisture, more nutrients, or more time to develop." After 5 days of soil preparation, Bongsu began planting. He chose fast-growing vegetables: radishes, lettuce, spinach, and bean sprouts. He also planted some herbs that would improve the flavor of the food. The aliens were skeptical. The seeds looked so small and lifeless. How could these tiny things possibly produce enough food for 50 people? "Patience," Bongsu told them. "Seeds know what to do. Our job is to help them do it." He set up a simple irrigation system using water recycled from the ship's systems. He arranged lights to provide the plants with the energy they needed. Everything was basic and functional, nothing like the complex machines in the alien food production facility. On day 7, the first green shoots appeared. The alien scientists were amazed. Something was actually growing in the dead soil they had brought. Word spread quickly through the ship. More aliens came to watch through the glass walls. "How is this possible?" Lixara asked. "We tried to grow emergency rations on this soil. Before, nothing would survive." "You probably tried to force growth," Bongsu said. "Plants cannot be forced. They must be encouraged." By day 10, the growing room was filled with green plants. The aliens had never seen anything like it. The metal room had been transformed into a living garden. The air inside smelled fresh and clean, unlike the recycled air in the rest of the ship. High Commander Thexvar came to see the progress. He stared through the glass for a long time without speaking. Behind him, groups of alien crew members gathered. Many of them had never seen living plants before. "It is green," Thexvar said finally. "Yes," Bongsu agreed. "Life is usually green. But it serves no purpose. These plants produce no technology, no weapons, no ships. They produce food," Bongsu said simply, "and food produces everything else." On day 15, Bongsu harvested the first radishes. They were small but perfectly formed. He washed them carefully and sliced them thin. Then he prepared them with a simple dressing made from ingredients he had grown in the garden. "Who wants to try?" he asked. The alien scientists looked at each other nervously. Finally, Vextar stepped forward. "I will test it for toxins," he said bravely. He took a small piece of radish and put it in his mouth. His eyes widened immediately. "It tastes different," he said in surprise. "Different how?" Lixara asked. "It tastes like something. The nutrition cubes taste like nothing, but this has flavor." One by one, the other scientists tried the radish. Their reactions were similar. For the first time in their lives, they were experiencing the taste of fresh food. "This is remarkable," Kothmar said. "How do you make it taste so interesting?" "I do not make it taste like anything," Bongsu explained. "This is how food naturally tastes when it is fresh and grown in healthy soil." Word of the tasting spread through the ship faster than a fire. Aliens who had heard about the growing room began asking if they could try the strange new food. Bongsu was happy to share, but he warned them to start with small amounts since their digestive systems were not used to fresh food. By day 20, Bongsu's garden was producing enough vegetables to supplement the meals of 30 aliens. They still ate their nutrition cubes, but now they added fresh lettuce, spinach, and herbs. The difference in their energy and mood was noticeable. "I feel more alert," reported one alien engineer. "My thinking is clearer." "I sleep better," said another. "And I wake up feeling rested instead of tired." The ship's medical officer was fascinated by these reports. He began running tests on the aliens who were eating fresh food. Their health markers were improving across the board. High Commander Thexavar was disturbed by these developments. His crew was becoming distracted by the garden. Productivity in some departments was declining as aliens took time to visit the growing room and learn about plants. "This is getting out of hand," he told his senior officers during a private meeting. "My warriors are becoming soft. They spend more time talking about vegetables than planning our conquest." "But Commander," said his chief medical officer, "the crew's health is improving dramatically, and morale is higher than it has been in years." "Morale does not win battles," Thexvar replied. "Discipline and strength win battles." "With respect, sir," the medical officer continued, "our battles have been getting harder to win. Our troops are often tired and weak from poor nutrition. This fresh food could make them stronger fighters, not weaker." Thexvar dismissed his officers and went to see the garden himself. Through the glass he could see Bongsu working peacefully among the plants. The old farmer was humming a tune as he tended to his vegetables. "Human," Thexvar called through the intercom. Bongsu looked up and smiled. "Good evening, Commander. Would you like to come inside and see the plants up close?" "I will observe from here," Thexvar said stiffly. "As you wish. But the plants smell very nice. Smell is part of the experience of growing food." Despite himself, Thexvar was curious. He had never smelled anything pleasant on his ship before. Everything smelled like metal, chemicals, or recycled air. Reluctantly, he entered the growing room. The change was immediate and overwhelming. The air was fresh and alive. It smelled like earth and growing things. Sunlight from the artificial. Lamps felt warm on his gray skin. For a moment, Thexavar felt something he had not experienced in decades. Peace. "This is what your world smells like?" he asked quietly. "Parts of it," Bongsu confirmed. "The parts where things grow freely and live as they choose." Thexvar walked slowly through the garden. Everywhere he looked, life was flourishing. Plants reached toward the light. Leaves rustled gently in the air circulation. Everything seemed purposeful and alive. "Why do you do this?" he asked suddenly. "Why do you create life instead of taking it?" Bongsu stopped his work and looked at the alien commander. For the first time, he saw not a conqueror, but a tired, hungry person who had forgotten what it meant to nurture something. "Because," Bongsu said gently, "life creates more life. When you plant a seed, you get many seeds back. When you take care of growing things, they take care of you. It is a partnership that makes both sides stronger." Thexavar touched a tomato plant gently. A ripe tomato hung heavy on the vine, red and perfect. "What happens now?" he asked. "Now," Bongsu said, "you have a choice to make." High Commander Thexavar stood in the garden for almost an hour. He did not speak, but Bongsu could see him thinking deeply. The old farmer continued his work, giving the commander space to process what he was seeing and feeling. Finally, Thexavar left the garden without a word. That night, emergency alarms sounded throughout the ship. Bongsu and Hana were awakened by flashing lights and loud sirens. Armed guards rushed to their quarters. "What is happening?" Hana asked. "General Crixmoth has taken control of the military sections," one guard explained. "He says the commander has been corrupted by human influence. There is fighting in the corridors." They were escorted to the bridge where they found chaos. Alien officers were arguing loudly. Some supported Thexvar, others supported General Crixmoth. The ship's crew was divided. Thexvar looked exhausted. "The general believes I have become weak," he explained to Bongsu. "He has convinced half my officers that farming is a disease that will destroy our warrior culture." "Where is General Crixmoth now?" Bongsu asked. "He has barricaded himself in the weapons section with his loyal troops. He is threatening to destroy your garden and execute all aliens who have eaten your food." Bongsu sighed. "Violence always seems easier than patience." "What should we do?" Hana asked. Before anyone could answer, explosions echoed through the ship. Crixmoth's forces were trying to blast their way to the growing room. "We must stop them," Bextar said urgently. "If they destroy the garden, We lose everything we have learned. No, Bongsu said calmly. We cannot stop them with force. That would prove their point that violence is the only solution. Then what do you suggest? Thexvar demanded. Bongsu thought for a moment. Then he smiled. We use the garden to stop them. Everyone stared at him as if he had gone insane. Trust me, the old farmer said. But first I need to speak to all the aliens who have been eating the fresh food. Within an hour, nearly 200 aliens had gathered in the large assembly hall. These were the crew members who had tried vegetables from Bongsu's garden. They came from every department, engineers, scientists, medical staff, and even some junior military officers. Friends, Bongsu said, standing before them. General Crixmoth wants to destroy the garden because he fears it will make you weak. What do you think? An alien engineer stood up. I have been eating fresh food for 15 days, she said. I feel stronger than I have in years. My work is better. My mind is clearer. The general says warriors should not farm, called out another alien. But growing food is the hardest work I have ever done. It requires patience, skill, and dedication. These are warrior qualities. One by one, the aliens who had tasted fresh food spoke up. They talked about feeling more energetic, sleeping better, and thinking more clearly. They talked about the satisfaction of watching plants grow and the pride of creating something useful. The general is afraid, said Lixara. He is afraid that if we learn to create instead of destroy, we will no longer need war. And is that a bad thing? Bongsu asked gently. The aliens looked at each other. Many of them had never considered the possibility of a life without conquest and battle. But the past month had shown them something different. They had experienced the joy of nurturing life instead of taking it. What do you want us to do? Asked Vextar. Follow me, Bongsu said. He led the group through the corridors toward the growing room. As they walked, they encountered Crixmoth's soldiers. The general's forces were heavily armed and ready for battle. But instead of fighting, Bongsu's group did something unexpected. They sat down. What are you doing? Demanded one of Crixmoth's officers. We are protecting the garden, said the alien engineer. But we will not use violence to do it. Then we will destroy you along with the plants, the officer threatened. If you do that, said Lixara calmly, you will be killing your own people. To destroy food that could feed your families? The soldier hesitated. Behind his helmet, Bongsu could see confusion and doubt. More of Crixmoth's troops arrived, but something strange was happening. When they saw their fellow aliens sitting peacefully in the corridors, protecting a garden with their bodies instead of weapons, many of them began to lower their guns. This is not the enemy, one soldier said to his commander. These are our friends and colleagues. They have been infected by human weakness, the commander replied. They must be stopped. But the soldier was looking at the aliens sitting in the corridor. He recognized faces. The engineer who had fixed his equipment, the medic who had treated his injuries, the scientist who had explained how the ship's systems worked. These were not weak people. They were some of the strongest and smartest individuals. On the ship, sir, the soldier said slowly. If eating fresh food makes people weak, why do these people seem so confident and determined? The commander had no answer. General Crixmoth himself finally arrived with his personal guard. He was a massive alien, heavily scarred from many battles. He looked at the peaceful crowd blocking his path to the garden. Move aside, he ordered. I will not be stopped by this foolishness. General, said Vextar, before you destroy the garden, will you at least see what we have accomplished? I have no interest in your plants. Then see the people who have benefited from them. Crixmoth looked more closely at the aliens sitting in the corridor. He began to recognize them. These were members of his own crew, people he had served with for years. They did not look weak or corrupted. They looked determined and healthy. Explain this to me, he said reluctantly. Bongsu stood up slowly. General, may I ask you a question? Speak quickly. Why do you fight? To expand our territory, to gather resources, to ensure the survival of our people. And what if I told you there was a way to ensure the survival of your people without fighting? I would say you are naive. Then let me show you something. Bong-su led the general to the growing room. Through the glass walls, Crixmoth could see the thriving garden. Plants grew in neat rows, heavy with vegetables and fruit. This room produces enough food to feed 50 people every month, Bong-su explained. It requires no rare minerals, no conquest, no destruction of other worlds, only soil, water, sunlight, and knowledge. One room, Crixmoth said dismissively. One room can become 10 rooms. 10 rooms can become 100. This ship could produce all its own food and have surplus to trade with other worlds. And then you would never need to conquer another world for resources. You could explore the galaxy as friends instead of enemies. You could share knowledge instead of stealing it. Crixmoth stared at the garden for a long time. Finally, he spoke. What you are suggesting would change everything about our society. Yes, Bong-su agreed. It would change everything. Is that so terrible? The general looked around at his soldiers. Many of them were staring at the garden with wonder. They had never seen anything so peaceful and productive. If we do this, Crixmoth said slowly, what happens to our military? Your military becomes something new, Bong-su suggested. Instead of an army of conquest, it becomes a force for exploration and protection. Instead of taking from the galaxy, you give to it. And Earth? Earth becomes your teacher and partner. We help you learn to farm. You help us learn to travel among the stars. Together, we make the galaxy a better place for everyone. Crixmoth stood in silence for several minutes. Around him, his soldiers waited for orders. The aliens protecting the garden waited to see if they would need to sacrifice their lives for their plants. Finally, the general made his decision. He removed his helmet and set down his weapon. Very well, human farmer, he said. Teach us to grow. The cheer that went up from the assembled aliens could be heard throughout the ship. High Commander Thexvar arrived moments later to find his crew celebrating instead of fighting. What has happened here? He asked. We have chosen to plant seeds instead of bombs, Crixmoth replied. And I think we are going to need bigger gardens. 6 months later, the alien fleet had been transformed into something unprecedented. A traveling, agricultural university. Every ship now had multiple growing rooms. Alien scientists worked alongside human farmers to adapt Earth crops for different planetary conditions. The Conquest fleet had become an exploration and education fleet. Instead of demanding surrender from inhabited worlds, they offered to teach farming techniques in exchange for knowledge about local ecosystems. Bong-su stood in the main agricultural bay of the command ship, watching young aliens learning to plant seeds. Lee Hana worked nearby, translating between human farmers and alien scientists. Do you think it will last? Hana asked. This peace we have created? Bong-su smiled as he watched an alien child plant her first tomato seed. Seeds last, he said, and the ideas we have planted here will grow for generations. Through the viewport, Earth hung in space like a blue and green jewel. But now it was not a target for conquest. It was the home of humanity's greatest export, the knowledge of how to make life flourish. The aliens had wanted a war. Instead, they got something much more valuable. They got hope.